everyone, so today I am here to do my August wrap-up. This month, I just didn't read as much as I feel like I usually do, especially during the summer months. This month was just like kind of weird. I don't know, I did Booktubeathon, but then after Booktubeathon I didn't really read that much. Like, I don't know, I just like, I definitely think I burned myself out. Like every summer basically, I feel like I basically burn myself out because I read so much and that's just not how I enjoy reading. I've said that a couple times, but I'm going to talk about the, I think 9 novels and 2 manga that I read this month. Again, most of these books are from the Booktubeathon. The 2 manga volumes and like 5 of the novels are from Booktubeathon, so. I do have vlogs, daily vlogs, or not daily, every 2-day vlogs for Booktubeathon if you guys want to check those out on my channel. Alright, so we're just going to get right on into it. The first book that I read this month was for the Booktubeathon, and that was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I ended up really enjoying this book. I know quite a few people really don't enjoy this book and like his other stuff better, but I actually really enjoyed this. I do like Born more, but this was a solid like 4.25, 4.5 star for me. I just thought it was just so weird and wacky and really interesting. I love super weird and like kind of makes no sense books. Like Murakami is my favorite author, obviously. So I really ended up enjoying this. This follows a group of people who go to this, like, it's called Area X, yeah. And they have to figure out, like, they just, I don't actually remember really why they have to go to this Area X, just to, like, explore. And basically they realize that stuff is kind of more weird than it really seems, and, like, stuff happens, and it's really hard to explain. It's a tiny little book, and I would say this is definitely a book that you have to read in one sitting. Like, you can't possibly put it down after, like, page 25, 30-ish. That being said, I did try to read the second book of this series, and it was really boring. I have DNF'd it for now, but I do plan on trying it again eventually. But this first book was definitely a lot better. Then the second book that I read for the Booktubeathon was Dredd Nation by Justina Ireland. That sounds right. This book I kept seeing on Booktube, so I decided to try it out on Scribd because I did still have Scribd at that point, and I was like, I might as well just try it out. It's only like, I think like a 9-hour audiobook, so I was like, why not? Let's try it out. I think this was like my coin flip book, and I gave it 2.5 stars. Like, nothing wrong with it. I feel like when I say 2.5 stars, people think like I hate it. 2.5 stars is 50%. It was fine. I just didn't like love it. Like, I'm sure a lot of other people would really enjoy this book. I just didn't care that much for it, especially the writing and everything, and I personally just didn't love the audiobook that much. But this is about a kind of different, like, what's it called? Alternate reality, Civil War in America, and it is basically like during the Civil War the dead start to rise, and like talking about racism and how like black people were kind of the people who were supposed to be fighting the dead and like all of that stuff. It was an interesting like premise and topic, but like after probably page like 100 I just like, it lost me. Like I just didn't care anymore. It was way too long, but it was fine. It just was definitely not for me. And the next book I read for the Booktubeathon was one of my favorite books of the month. I absolutely loved it, and that is The Oracle Year by Charles Soule. I got this book from the library and I loved it so much I had to order myself a copy of it, so that's how you know I really enjoyed this. I give it a 4.75 out of 5 stars at the moment, but who knows, it might go up. This, oh my gosh, what is this? I apparently hadn't opened this book yet because pamphlets just fell out. That was weird. This book is about, it is just, I don't know how to put my feelings into words about this book. I would say this book reminds me the most of, like, the only kind of comparison I can really give it is it reminded me a lot of Dark Matter, but like not in plot at all, just like the feel of this book. Because in this book, so we follow a man named, what was his name? Will Dando, who one night wakes up from a dream where he was given these like predictions about the future. So like it would say a very specific date and a very specific thing that was going to happen on that date. And of course he thinks at first that like these things aren't real, like it was just a dream, even though like it was a dream, but he could like remember everything so perfectly, and then he realizes that a couple of them have passed and have actually happened. So these are like, this man is going to catch a fish on this day versus this is going to happen and affect this crop. Like, it's all over the place, and some of the predictions really don't make any sense when he first gets them, but by the end of the book you understand what they mean. And I was just blown away by this book. I actually said multiple times while I was reading it on Goodreads and in my Booktubeathon vlogs that this read like a comic book. Like, I could see an anime made about this book, or a movie, or a comic book. And then of course someone told me that Charles Soule is a comic book writer and this is his first novel, and I definitely think that comes out in his writing. It's very fast-paced, very, very interesting, and very, very visual. I read this half on audio, half in physical edition, and I would say both of them are really, really great. This book is just, it's a psychological thriller sci-fi thing that I mean, I've never read anything like this, and I absolutely adored it, so I can't recommend it enough, especially if you liked something like dark matter. I think you would really, really enjoy this. The next book I read was another psychological thriller, and that was Our Kind of Cruelty by, I honestly can't remember because I'm a bad person. But this book I gave a 3.5 star, 3.75 out of 5 stars. This book, I think it should have just stopped at the halfway point. Like, it is a part 1 and part 2 story, but part 2 did nothing to improve the story. This is about a man and a woman who were together for like 9 years or something, and they were dating and everything, and they played this weird like sexual game. It was basically like this weird sexual game that they would play with each other all of the time when they would go to bars, and it was weird. It wasn't like super like crazy, but one day they break up, and this book takes place like 6 months after that, and the woman has sent the man a invitation to her wedding to another man, and basically it's about him kind of still thinking like this is a part of their game, and like she's playing with him, and like all of this stuff happening, and like it's kind of weird. It's hard to explain, but again, I feel like it should have ended at the climax. Like, the climax happens halfway through this book, and then the second half of the book is just like the court case. And I just like, I got nothing out of that court case. Like, I definitely think this book, it was a very short book, but I think it could have ended at the halfway point. Or it should have been expanded to that first half of the book being the entire book. Like, I just thought the court case did nothing for it. But the first half of the book was excellent, and I really, really enjoyed it. So that's why I gave it 3.5-ish stars, just because the second half of the book was not necessary at all. The next book I read for Booktubeathon was If You Don't Have Anything Nice to Say by Layla Sales, which I ended up really, really enjoying this book. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars, which is very high for me for a YA contemporary novel, or NA contemporary novel. So this book is basically about public shaming on the internet, and it definitely talks a lot about, like, the internet doesn't really have rules. Like, it's not like a jury and a judge deciding whether someone should be punished. It's just the general population. And sometimes they don't even realize how much they ruin someone's life. This is about a girl who, she was a spelling bee champion, like national spelling bee champion, and she makes a comment on the newest spelling bee champion, like years later. She's like a young adult, and the spelling bee champion's like a 7th grader or something, and she just makes a comment about how kind of like you don't see many black kids winning the spelling bee, and she was not trying to make a comment about the girl being black. She was trying to make a comment about the spelling bee being low-key racist kind of thing, but everyone took it as her saying that black people are stupid, and it destroys her life. She gets kicked out of college, she doesn't have anywhere to go, she can't make any friends or jobs, all of her friends leave her, her family doesn't support her, all of this stuff just because of this one comment that she made online. And she goes to a kind of rehab center for people who this has happened to. So you have her, you have a child celebrity who like went off the deep end, kind of like Miley Cyrus-esque. You have a man who was trying to protect his daughter from a tiger that got out of the zoo, but he shot it and everyone hates him because it was like an endangered tiger. That was like the craziest person in this book. But then you have the love interest in this book who I absolutely freaking adored. I haven't loved a love interest in a YA novel like this in a very long time. I adored him. I adored their relationship and it was so cute. But yeah, this book, I personally really enjoyed what this book was trying to say, because you do get both sides of it. You get the people who had their lives destroyed and how they're feeling and how they are just kind of like, everyone misunderstood what I said or what I did. But then you also have the other side of it of like why people feel like they need to kind of like out these people as bad people on the internet. And it definitely, like, I really enjoyed it because I think the internet is a very just toxic place that just destroys people's lives for no reason, and it is definitely something I feel very strongly about. So I really enjoyed this book for what it's saying, but I can also see people who are on the other side who think that everyone should be destroyed if they say one thing wrong. They're gonna hate this book. But I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an online presence that I do see just like people just trying to like bring each other down, and it just makes no sense sometimes. And that's why I really enjoyed this book. If you're on the other side of this, I think you're gonna really hate this book, but I really loved it. And then for Booktubeathon, I read 2 volumes of Naruto. I finally started my Naruto Shippuden reread. If you guys were with me a couple of years ago, or a year ago, I read Naruto Part 1, reread Naruto Part 1. I am a huge Naruto fan. I have been reading and watching the series since I was like 7 years old, but I have actually never reread Shippuden all the way through. I have rewatched certain fights, I've reread certain parts, but I have never read it all the way through since it ended like 2 or 3 summers ago. And I need to. So I decided to pick up Naruto Volume 28 and Naruto Volume 29. Unfortunately, Shippuden starts with an arc that I just don't really care that much about. Like, I do not like Sasori and Gramachia's and Sakura's fight. Like, it just doesn't do anything for me. I find it extremely boring and drawn out. And I don't really love the arc with Gaara, which is funny because he's like my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters, sorry. But I'm just so excited for the arc after this because it actually has my favorite character in all of Naruto. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it's the next arc. But yes, so this was my start in on my reread of Naruto Shippuden. So I'm very excited to be continuing that. Alright, so the next book I read, I did get a physical edition, it's in the mail, but I read this on audio, and that is The Book of M by Peng Shepherd, I believe. This book, oh my god, this is a new book, favorite book of all time. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This book was insane. Like, I don't even know how to put into words how I felt about this book. This book made me feel so many things. I read this on audio again, like I said, and it is about a world where people start to lose their shadows. It's based off of, I don't know if this is real, but they talked about it in the book, so sorry if this is wrong and this is just another fictional thing that the author made up, but apparently like there's a time, I think it was in India, that there's a day and a time that the sun is so perfectly overhead that everyone's shadows disappear. Like, that is just so perfectly aligned that everyone in this one area's shadows just disappear. And after that day happened on this one year, this one man never gets his shadow back. It's just gone. And everyone thinks, like, you know, this is a person sent from God. This is a, like, thing sent from someone else. Like, this is happening for a reason. And he's famous and all of that. And then other people start to lose their shadows. And then people realize that the people losing their shadows are losing their memories. But it's not just memories of like, oh, I have a cat. Oh, I went to this school when I was a child. Like, it's, I forgot I need to eat. I forgot I need to breathe. I forgot I need to drink water. I forgot that I was a human. Like, those kinds of things. And it was just crazy. The way I've been describing this book is kind of what I wanted out of Bird Box by Josh Malerman, which I hated, which is one of my least favorite, most disappointing books I've ever read in my life, but mixed with like Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and just kind of like any post-apocalyptic story, but like take that and just like make it a million times better. Like this is a post-apocalyptic story at its like surface level. It is so much more than just a post-apocalyptic story. Like this book is so much about just what it means to be human and human relationships and what does it mean for someone to be themselves. The ending of this book made me the angriest I've ever been in my life at a book, I want to say, like in a good way, kind of. Like, okay, like I was really angry at Bird Box because of like certain things that happened in that story in a very, very negative way, but in this book it was just like I was so angry at this one character. Like it was like this had actually happened to me. Like I was just so engrossed with it that this one character who I loved through the entire book, I hated at the very, very end of the book because of something that he does. And it was just so like, oh, I love this book so much. And yes, I did order myself a copy for my birthday, so I will be getting that very soon. But let me just tell you, you guys got to go pick this up the second you can. Go get it from our library, order it off of Amazon. It is on Scribd for free. You guys need to get this book and read it as soon as possible. I'm not saying put it on your TBR and get to it in 2 years. I'm saying this month, this year, go out and read this book because it is going to be on my favorite books of the year. Like seriously, it's amazing. The next book I read was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, a very, very stark difference to the Book of M. This book it's been going all over Booktube. I decided to pick it up because I hadn't really read a just like cute little romance this summer and I was in the mood to. This is about a woman who is autistic and doesn't think she's good at sex. And so she hires a male escort to teach her the ways of sex and the relationship that blossoms from her doing this. I ended up really, really enjoying this. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Just because I actually docked a star because I felt like most romance novels I can just like fly through. But this one did take me a little bit to kind of like, just like not like get into it, but like as I was reading it, it felt like I was reading for a really long time and I'd only read 100 pages. Like it just took a long time for me to get through and I don't really know why. But yeah, this book was great. I really enjoyed it. Michael, oh my god. I need a Michael in my life, let me tell you. And this is own voices and it's great and I really, really enjoyed it. I highly recommend if you like romance. And then the next book that I completed this month was Felside by M.R. Carey. I decided to pick this up because I really enjoyed their book, The Girl with All the Gifts, that I read last year, I think. And I decided to read this on audio, and I just wasn't like that huge of a fan. Oh my god, M.R. Carey's a man? I didn't know that. I didn't know their gender. I gave this a 2.5 star. This book was just too long. This book is very, very interesting in premise, and there are certain parts of it that are really, really good, but there was so much that should have been taken out. Like, there was just a whole, like, kind of plot line that just, who cared? You know what I mean? This book follows a girl who she wakes up in a hospital room with very, like, little memories. Like, she has amnesia. She knows like a lot about like her life but doesn't really remember the last little bit, and they tell her that she has killed a little boy by starting a fire in her apartment. And I don't know, low-key I didn't really understand the beginning of this book. I was like, how is she being charged for murder for starting a fire that killed a boy that wasn't even in her apartment? I don't know. I didn't think it made much sense at all. But anyways, this little boy was actually a boy that she would talk to and like speak with on the stairwell in their apartment complex. And he was very much abused by his parents and stuff like that and had a very hard life. So she wanted to make it better. Anyways, that whole thing happens. Court case happens. She's found guilty. She goes to jail, which is called Felside. And it's a max security prison, all of that. And when she is there, she decides like she just doesn't want to live anymore. Like she can't live with herself and goes on a hunger strike and almost dies. But then in her dreams, she starts seeing the ghost of this little boy that she apparently killed, who tells her that he doesn't think that she is the one who killed him. And that was the whole interesting plot line, was this little boy and the ghost and the paranormal aspects of this. But it focused so much on like prison dynamics, and I don't know, man, I just did not give a crap about that. Like, maybe it'd be interesting if you guys like wanted to hear about prison dynamics and stuff and women just like beating the shit out of each other for no reason, but I just didn't find it interesting at all. And yeah, it was just way too long. It was interesting, but like only that one plot line in the story was really interesting. And again, just, I don't know, I didn't think it made that much sense why she was getting blamed for all of this. And I don't know, I wasn't that big of a fan of it. It just took like forever for me to like read, it felt like. But yeah, so I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I finished this month was Sweet Bean Paste by, I can't remember the name of this person, I'm so sorry. This book, oh my god. Let me tell you, I tried to read this at work, and the first day I was like, okay, I have to stop because I'm about to cry in the middle of work, and all my co-workers are around me in like a circle because we're all just hanging out. And then the second day I was like, no, I want to finish this book so I can talk about it in my wrap-up. Plus, I just want to finish this book. And I literally had to stand up and just like leave the room after I finished it because I was literally about to fucking cry my eyes out in the middle of this like office. I was just, oh my god, I was so emotional about this book. This book is so much more than it seems to be. Like, I feel like anytime I've heard people talk about it, they always say it's a really cute story, and I'm like, this book was like, yes, it's cute in a way, but oh my god, it was so heartbreaking. It's about this man who works at a, what's it called, a dorayaki shop, which is like a pancake with sweet bean paste in it, and like, yes, and he one day gets a visit from a woman who says that she can make really good sweet bean paste, and she decides to help him and teach him how to do this, but he realizes that she is disabled. There's something wrong with her, but he doesn't want to ask her about it, and he can see it from her hands are all like kind of like folded up on themselves. And this book taught me a lot more about Japanese history than I thought it was going to, and just history in general of the treatment of a specific type of people. I'm not going to give it away because that is like a kind of reveal in the story, but wow, this story was so much more than I thought it was going to be, and just so much more heartbreaking than I ever thought it was going to be. But I highly recommend it. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars, and I loved it. This book, it really tugs on your heartstrings. But anyways, other than that, the only other book that I kind of read this month was Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, but I decided to put it down. I was about 150 pages into it, but I just did not have time to be reading it. It's a 1,000-page book. It's right over there. So I decided to put it down for now. It's not a DNF. It is just, I don't have time to enjoy this right now, so I need to put it down so I can actually enjoy it. I've requested the audiobook, so hopefully I will pick it up in the next couple weeks when that comes in. But yeah, so that was all of the books that I read this month. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed this wrap up. Definitely tell me down below if you guys have read any of the books I discussed today. And I love you all, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye!